Hello everybody, and welcome to the Thursday edition of Video Clips. And I found this little thing in the newspaper this morning I had to share with you. The World Health Organization on Monday of this week, which was June 18th of 2018, officially recognized gaming disorder as a condition in its international classification of diseases, saying that it is possible to be addicted to video games. The hallmark of the disorder is that playing games overtakes other desires and it continues or escalates despite negative consequences. A diagnosis would have to include evidence of this type of behavior lasting for more than 12 months, the organization said. The disorder affects no more than 3% of gamers, the Associated Press reported, with some estimates as low as 1%. Now, subsequent to seeing this in the newspaper, I actually heard on the radio between my house and the gym that the American psychiatric profession is not ready to label this as a disease just yet. But I think that there's just a matter of time before they start labeling it as a disease, and there will be new drugs developed, okay? There will be some type of anti-gaming disorder drug that will be specifically targeting a neurotransmitter known to cause people to become addicted to their screens and play games when they should be going to work or doing something else. So I'm always tickled to death when I see these kinds of things. It's just astounding. The types of things that they categorize as disorders. So I have a disorder. It's called research disorder. And what that means is a person who incessantly researches and looks for answers to things, even when they should be going out to dinner with their friends and reading a book on the couch and that sort of thing. So I'm sure there's a drug for that. But right now I think you count on my having research disorder so that I can come to you every Tuesday and Thursday with interesting things to say. And I do have something really interesting to talk about today. And I need to start at the beginning of this story. It has to do with the 2013 study in the New England Journal of Medicine, which reported, that the article reported the results of a study showing that almost 30% of heart attacks, strokes, and deaths from heart disease could be avoided in high-risk patients if they converted to a Mediterranean diet high in olive oil, nuts, wine, fish, and fruits and vegetables. So we've had a recent event, but without the background event, it's information, it doesn't make as much difference. So at the time, this was in 2013, the New York Times reported, quote, "The magnitude of the diet's benefits startled even the experts." And then the Times went on to quote some of the experts. "Really impressive," says Rachel Johnson, professor of nutrition at the University of Vermont and a spokesperson for the American Heart Association. Dr. Stephen Nissen, chairman of the Department of Cardiovascular Medicine at the Cleveland Clinic, said that while low-fat diets have not been shown to be helpful, quote, "Now along comes this group and does a gigantic study in Spain that says that you can eat a nicely balanced diet with fruits and vegetables and olive oil and lower heart disease by 30%, and you can actually enjoy life." I guess Steve just can't visualize enjoying life unless you eat a Mediterranean diet with olive oil and nuts. I mean, I'm not sure about that. Well, anyway, not surprisingly, the study was paid for by the olive oil and nut producers in Spain and the California Walnut Commission, all of which stood to benefit, obviously, from positive results, and several of the researchers had ties to the food and wine industries. The researchers enrolled 7,447 people in Spain who were overweight or smoked or had diabetes or other risk factors for coronary artery disease, and they were assigned randomly, we'll come back to that, to either consume one of two versions of the Mediterranean diet or what they called a low-fat diet. Now, the public was told that those consuming the Mediterranean diet were so much better off than those people eating the low-fat diet that the study ended early because it would have actually been unethical to allow those people to continue eating a low-fat diet. But there were no participants eating a low-fat diet. In fact, the people assigned to the low-fat diet lowered their fat intake from 39% to 37%, an insignificant amount. So it's not surprising that nobody in the quote-unquote low-fat eating group lost weight. Weight loss is a pretty decent marker for compliance on a health-promoting diet. Furthermore, most of the people in the low-fat group, actually in the study, were taking statin drugs, blood pressure drugs, or drugs for diabetes, and there were no reductions in medication. This should have been a sign that something may not be quite right. The dietary protocol for the Mediterranean dieters was almost hard to believe. One group of Mediterranean dieters was given extra virgin olive oil free because the researchers thought it might be too expensive for them to buy, and these people were told to eat 4 tablespoons of olive oil every day. The other Mediterranean diet group was given combinations of nuts and told to make sure that they consumed an ounce every day. So the food was provided for free. Both groups were told to eat fish at least 3 times a week legumes 3 times per week, white meat instead of red, and for those who drank, to have at least a glass of wine daily, 7 days a week with 1 meal. The researchers reported that the participants were really compliant on the Mediterranean diet. I'm sure they were. They were instructed to eat rich, caloric food and liberal amounts of alcohol. They must have been happy as little clams at high tide. Now, I read the article in the New England Journal of Medicine at the time that it came out, and I could not reconcile the data that I saw with the enthusiasm and hype in the New York Times article, for example. As is often the case, the reduction in events was reported using relative rather than absolute numbers, which makes the effect size look bigger. That's why they do it that way. So when adjusted and reported accurately, here is what the study results said. A total of 288 events occurred during the time of the study. 96 events in the Mediterranean diet group eating olive oil, 3.8%. 83 events in the group eating nuts, 3.4%. 109 events in the quote-unquote low-fat eating group, if we want to call it that, 4.4%. Now let me tell you what that turns out to be. In absolute terms, the people eating olive oil experienced a risk reduction of 0.6%, 0.6%. Those eating nuts had a 1% reduction in risk. Statistical significance was only achieved for reducing the risk of stroke. Now, we're talking 0.6%. This is a study that was, Steve Nissen says, with gigantic study, with amazing results. You can eat olive oil and enjoy life. Like I said, I was reading the New York Times article. I checked 3 times to make sure I'm looking at the right thing. Well, this study has been referred to often since its publication as a landmark study and a game changer. As a result, millions of people have been told to eat nuts and olive oil and to drink wine as a strategy for reducing their risk of cardiovascular disease and death. In fact, this New England Journal of Medicine article has been cited by 3,268 other scientific papers. Think about that. On Wednesday, June 13th, last week, 2018, the New England Journal of Medicine retracted the article due to issues concerning study design. Now, articles are retracted when it's learned that the results are no longer reliable and there is no correction that can be made to the reporting that makes the results reliable. The story of how the issues with study design were discovered is, I think, pretty interesting. A few years ago, a British anesthesiologist by the name of John Carlisle was questioning articles authored by a researcher in his field, Dr. Yoshitaka Fuji. Carlisle suspected, because of things that he read, that subjects in this particular researcher's trials were not randomized properly, and follow-up analysis, which he did, proved that he was right. So he published his findings in 2012, and after that, over 160 articles that were authored by Fuji were subsequently retracted. Carlisle then started looking into other studies, and he got interested in stuff published in the New England Journal of Medicine because such a high percentage of the articles he found questionable came from the New England Journal. And one of the ones that caught his attention was the Mediterranean diet study that I just covered that caused so much attention when it was in Fuss, when it was published in 2013. What he discovered when he started looking into it is that 14% of the subjects in the study had not been randomized properly. For example, when couples enrolled together, they were assigned to the same diet, and the lead researcher assigned an entire village to the same diet and didn't tell the rest of the research team. This is clearly not a randomized controlled study. The authors of the original paper are replacing it with a corrected version that shows that those eating the Mediterranean diet had fewer strokes and heart attacks, but this time they reported that there was a correlation between the Mediterranean diet and better health outcomes, not that the Mediterranean diet caused the better outcomes. This is a significant difference in the way that the data are reported and essentially negates the claims that were made in the original paper. This is not the only event that has lessened enthusiasm for the Mediterranean diet. A recent study, including almost 19,000 participants, showed that the diet was beneficial, but only for well-educated rich people. People in lower socioeconomic groups did not benefit at all. According to co-author Maria Laura Bonaccio, quote, other factors beyond quantity and frequency of Mediterranean food appear to influence future health outcomes. One of them may be the quality of the foods. Well, in this study, the types of foods varied depending upon the socioeconomic status of the individuals in the study. More educated participants ate a broader variety of vegetables, more organic vegetables, and more whole grains. Those with higher incomes ate more whole grain breads, fruit, nuts, and fish, and less meat than lower income subjects. This study didn't find benefit from Mediterranean foods like olive oil and nuts, but rather benefit from healthier eating patterns like more whole plant foods and less meat. It's unlikely that any of this will significantly change eating patterns, I'm sorry to say. Those who already eat a low-fat plant-based diet will be assured that they made a good choice and didn't listen to all the noise back in 2013. Those who insist that the Mediterranean diet works will probably rely on the fact that the original study, with its inherent conflicts and poor study design and barely reportable results, did show a correlation. And unfortunately, both consumers and health professionals generally do not understand the difference between cause and effect relationship and correlation, and the importance of identifying and quantifying a cause and effect relationship before making decisions about health-related issues like diet. So anyway, you can't believe everything that you read, including things that you read in the New England Journal of Medicine. All right, that's all for today and all for the week. As usual, pass this on to anybody who you think will enjoy watching it. There will be no video clips next Tuesday because I will be taking that day off because it's the day before the 4th of July, and I don't have anything exciting planned except going for a long run, eating healthy food, getting a little bit of sunshine if the sun's out, and probably, because I won't be able to help myself being as that I have research disorder, I'm sure I'll be reading a couple of medical journals and preparing what I'm going to say to you on Thursday. So have a great 4th of July holiday, and I'll be back to you next Thursday with more news.